Dennis Rodman's daughter is the star of the US.
I know, making it happen.
It's a sign of how old I'm.
And by the way, speaking of stars, let's shine a little spotlight on some potential free agent moves we may see this offseason. Wendy, let's start with the Warriors.
They need to keep Kevon Looney. He's their starting center, and he's an unrestricted free agent. He plays a really important role on their defense. And longer term, not in this next week, Andrew Wiggins is eligible for a contract extension.
Yeah, they're going to be going up a lot of money. Okay, and then what about the Lakers?
So the Lakers need everything, but they only got 6 guys under contract. But they've got to somehow convince Malik Monk to take their tax mid-level exception, which is $6.5 million. I believe his value is probably around double that, maybe even more. There's not a whole lot of teams with cap space, but for him to stay for that $6 million, he's leaving millions on the table for a guy who hasn't made a big contract yet. If they get Malik Monk to stay, that will be a real victory for them.
I just love these narratives that come out around this time. We just want you to do what's best for the team. It's like, no, Malik Monk, do what's best for your bank account.
Yeah,
and by the way, if we're talking about Malik Monk taking a discount on a team that didn't make the play-in tournament last year, that is a very simple summation of where the Lakers are at.
Yeah.
Not a good place.
And by the way, can I give a very simple summation of where the Knicks are right now? What in the world is happening with this team? I got to talk about these guys because they've been very busy in recent days. Yesterday, Woj reported that the Knicks traded Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks to the Pistons, clearing $19 million in salary cap space. They're now able to make a big contract offer for Jalen Brunson. Now, you know Brunson. He was the guy playing alongside Luka, making it happen for the Mavericks in the playoffs. They want this guy. What are the Knicks doing, Tim?
Well, the Knicks are a desperate team that's doing desperate things. And one of them is going to get Jalen Brunson, who has relationships with Leon Rose, who is his agent, Tom Thibodeau, who has hired Rick Brunson, his father, to be on his staff. They've all known him forever. But really, this is about a Knicks team that has spent years trying to get guys to come to New York, hasn't been able to get them, and now they have a guy who wants to come there. And so
but how much are they going to pay him?
They're going to pay him a lot of money. A lot more than most other teams would pay him, and a lot more than Dallas would pay him, which is why Dallas is losing their second best player off a team that went to the Western Conference Finals.
By the way, just to give you context, Dallas could have extended him before the season. And they chose in season, and they chose not to. And that price was around $55 million. He doubled that price.
Dallas literally could have paid him half as much in January. Jalen Brunson said, I will re-sign with you guys now if you give me 4 for 55. Dallas said, we'll wait. Now they lost him for twice that much.
So let me get this straight, Wendy. He has, and again, I'm not trying to knock Jalen Brunson. He was awesome in the playoffs. He's not an all-star. He's about to make 9 figures from the Nets. So I ask again, what are the Knicks doing?
So the Knicks have $30 million in salary cap space now, and they also have something that nobody else has. They have 8 tradable first-round picks. They have 11 in the next 7 years, but they can trade 8 of them. So that actually gives them some options. The question is, do they use some of that now, or do they wait for another player down the line to say he wants to be traded and then go for it? League executives last night were saying, is this all there is? Is Jalen Brunson their big move? Or are they trying to go after another player in potential to pair with Jalen Brunson? Maybe there's something else in the offing. Dallas is willing, I believe, to do a sign and trade with Jalen Brunson. That would mean the Knicks could potentially have cap space to do other things. Dallas already realizes they're losing him. The Knicks don't need a sign and trade. They can now sign Brunson straight up. But there are maybe some other things that in the trade market that the Knicks could be doing. So let's watch and see over the next 3 or 4 days whether or not the Knicks have something else that they're hiding.
And can I tell you, I know, I feel like the anger has, I know for me, dissipated off the Knicks, always getting angry at everything that's non-splashy that they do. But do I love it? No. Am I okay with it? Jalen, yeah, because I feel like Jalen Brunson, maybe the price has been inflated because you've seen the way he's played in the playoffs. But I will say this about him, man. I played with his dad. The dude is a winner. Like, he's a guy that comes to practice and plays hard daily. And there is something about the culture that he can help enhance around R.J. Barrett. So is the price inflated? Yes, it is. But as we see, as the market goes up, a lot of these players are going to get paid more than what their value is.
But let me ask you this. Is he a superstar?
I'm not going to say Jalen Brunson's a superstar.
Okay. Don't the Knicks need a superstar desperately in New York?
Yes.
Yeah, but yes. But, I mean, you still build towards having a superstar. Don't you?
The problem for the Knicks, though, and I agree with you about everything you said about Jalen Brunson. He won at Villanova. He's won in Dallas. He's a winning player. The Knicks need winning players. The problem is The Knicks are now stuck with a team that's got hundreds of millions of dollars tied up in pretty good players. And to your point, Ryan, they don't have a path right now to go get a star, which is why they're getting Jalen Brunson. They don't have anybody else to get. And it's a start, but it's nowhere near where this team needs to be. I don't know if this team is going to be in the play-in tournament next year.
That's crazy.
After doing this.
When you look at what they've got committed to Evan Fournier, what they've got committed to Julius Randle, this commitment would go $300 million in those three players.
Wow.
And that's before they have to potentially extend R.J. Barrett this
And then
summer.
R.J. Barrett potentially, if they give him the full max, will be a $400 million on those four. I don't know how many all-star appearances you're going to get out of those four.
Oh, I'm not condoning Evan Fournier and the rest of the cast. I am to a degree on Jalen Brunson.
No.
I'm not condoning the rest of the. I'm just talking about Jalen Brunson.
No one is trying to say Jalen Brunson isn't a great player, and I'm really happy that he might get a huge payday. What I'm asking is, the Knicks fans out there, all they care about is having superstars, winners. They want a title again. Are they anywhere close to that with this deal?
No.
So why do this deal?
Well, as I said at the beginning, the Knicks are a desperate team that are doing desperate things. This is a desperate thing. And they have struck out time and again. They signed Julius Randle a couple summers ago because they went into that summer thinking maybe we'll get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Maybe we'll get somebody else. Everybody turned them down. They ended up with Julius Randle and a bunch of role players. That's the status of what the Knicks have been for years.
After we had a lot of superstars demanding trades for a 4-year span, as the Knicks have positioned themselves to trade for a superstar, we've had a bit of the market's kind of dried out. A lot of the superstars are extending their contracts. So, and then the Knicks haven't exactly made themselves as fertile as it but that's their idea. Their idea is that they're going to take some of the players they have, and they're going to take all these draft picks and eventually get that player. But obviously, it hasn't come to.
That is the funny thing. To Brian's point, the Knicks have finally positioned themselves to have the assets to get a star, and there's no stars to get.
Okay. What fans, I think, want to see. So let's talk a little bit about him. Brian, what do we know right now about Harden and this contract option decision?
The expectation is he is going to remain with the Sixers. He has a $47 million option for next year, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to pick it up. The Sixers, right now, with where they are in the luxury tax, they are very restricted what they can spend. So James Harden could agree to a new 3-year contract, but what he could do is he could opt out today and lower his salary, which would free up money for the Sixers, not cap space, but it would free up them to use their full mid-level exception, which is $10 million. The reason that's interesting is the expectation is they are going to be chasing P.J. Tucker. They love P.J. Tucker coming into this organization, but to get the money to compete with the Miami Heat, who want to keep P.J. Tucker, they need to shed some salary somehow. So if it's not with Harden reducing his salary on a long-term deal by opting out and then re-signing, they would have to make another deal to be able to afford the P.J. Tucker market.
Okay, so
remember when James Harden turned down a chance to make $50 million a year in Houston? So like I see.
He turned it down last year in Brooklyn.
That's right, last year in Brooklyn too. So for me, it just goes back to look, I think P.J. Tucker could be one of the missing links for this team because of the toughness that he brings to the table.
So tough.
And I think it's extremely additive to the culture that already exists within Philly.
Remember, Joel Embiid at the end of Game 6 when they lost to Miami went on a 2-minute soliloquy about how much the Sixers need a guy, as Ryan knows, exactly like P.J. Tucker.
Yep, and you know what? I'd welcome him with open arms. But I get back to Harden. Jay, what do you need to see from him this offseason? And do you think he can be that top 5 guy again?
Top 5?
Yes.
You don't need him to be.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. First off,
it's the Sixers fan in me coming out.
Let's break down a couple things, right? It's a world of absolutes that we live in. Pay scale doesn't always equate to top 5.
That's true.
Right? Do you need James Harden to be a top 5 player to win a championship? No, I actually don't. I think the pieces that you need Joel Embiid to be healthy. You need him to be healthy. You need the additive pieces to work. The injury for him, I think, last year played into who I think he became throughout the course of the season. But I still think him as a distributor, him as a guy that can make shots, and him being in shape, if you're questioning the shape of James Harden, that is able to be questioned. But I think him playing that kind of pseudo point guard role, combined with the pieces of Joel Embiid being healthy, is enough to have this team there when it's all said and done.
Do you think he gets in the kind of shape he needs to be in this offseason?
I mean, that's what we're waiting to find out. I mean, having videos like this and hearing it internally definitely lets you know it's moving, hopefully, in the right direction.
So, Tim, if Harden makes this move, what's Philly's ceiling? When you talk about this, possibly P.J. Tucker, what's the ceiling in Philly?
If they get P.J. Tucker with DeAnthony Melton, with some other moves that Daryl Morey will probably be able to make to round things out around the edges, I think this team is good enough, if Joel Embiid is healthy, which he wasn't in the playoffs, to be right at the top of the East. I think they have that potential. But again, it's a lot of talk about potential on a lot of fronts. Joel Embiid is never healthy. James Harden has obviously not always been in shape. We don't know if they're going to get PJ Tucker. But if this comes together and they get PJ Tucker, who is exactly the kind of guy they need, I think they have a chance to be that good because Tyrese Maxey is really good. He's going to get better. Harden last year averaged 20 and 10 with a hamstring that wasn't all the way right. And Joel Embiid might have been the MVP of the league. Like, they have a ton of talent. And these teams at the top